Thanks, Vinay, for giving this opportunity to speak. I think the first time I'm speaking in front of a crowd in Navi Mumbai, and pretty nervous. And this is not the first time that I'm speaking in front of people. I think I've already given around 60 workshops over the past 5 years, ever since I started. Can you hear me at the back, right? No? Yes. Okay. So can you please make the volume louder, because I can't speak from yeah. So this is I've already conducted around 50-60 workshops over the last 5 years, ever since I started on this journey of Safal Niveshak. Just to give a brief background, I worked in the stock market as an analyst for 8 years, and literally at the end of that 8-year or 7-year term, I just hated this industry, financial industry, stock markets. I think if you go to Nariman Point, you'll have the maximum ego per square feet of space, right? So people with the maximum amount of egos crowd at the place called Nariman Point in Bombay, and financial services industry is a bag full of egos. So this is one industry which I have been, where I have been for the past 15 years now, and have not liked working in this industry for all the obvious reasons. I think investors' trust have lost, investors not trust on financial advisors. So Vinay is one of the nice guys whom I know. So this is not for Vinay. But as an industry, what I've seen is people have lost trust because they have been involved in various scams. Both from the corporate side as well as financial services industry, people have been missold wrong kind of products. But before we lay the blame on the industry as such, I think we need to do an introspection. And the reason I am going to talk about human behavior today is because the reason is that most of the mistakes that we make as investors, whether we go by the advice of the financial advisor or a banker, or we make individual investment decisions, I think most of the mistakes, or 99% of mistakes, are because of bad behavior. And I'm going to talk about the kind of bad behavior that we all indulge in day in and day out, especially when it comes to money. Right? We do in the inverse of what we've done in life. So we take around 5-6 years, even 10 years to study, work hard, and become something in life, right? Start earning money. And just on a stock tip, just on a moment of madness, I think we lose everything. So that's a problem of behavior. So let me start with a survey which was done by Fidelity. Fidelity is one of the biggest asset managers worldwide. So in 2013, they did a survey among their clients of who are the best performing clients during the 10-year period of 2003 to 2013. And what they really found out was really surprising. The best performing clients were either inactive guys or those they were dead. Right? So people who were dead were the best performing guys. And it tells a lot about how we can manage our own investments. I think one speculation I have, the reason people who are dead were the best investors is because they were not really into behavioral issues. They did not make mistakes, right? They were stuck, they were dead. So the reason it has a big amount of lesson for us as investors, of course we don't need to be dead to become better investors, but the idea is that we need to behave well, and behave well soon. Small investors often think, and I've dealt with a lot of small investors, and they always at a loss of words, and they always think that they don't have any edge as far as investing is concerned, right? But I think any investor, whether you're a retail investor, whether you're an institutional investor, large investor, you have three kind of edges. The first is informational edge. What is informational edge? It is what you can know that others don't know, right? So the edge of information. The second is analytical. How well you can analyze a situation, how well you can analyze a investment better. And the third edge is behavioral. How sensible you can behave as compared to others. Now, informational edge is not really an edge anymore because everyone has the same kind of information, right? About a stock or a mutual fund. Analytical edge, I'm not sure if small investors have that time or inclination to do analysis, to do deep analysis on investments in businesses. So I'm not sure if you guys have analytical edge. But when it comes to behavior, I think if you look at most of the scams or most of the frauds or most of the crises that has happened in the world, especially in the financial services space, it has happened in the behavior side. Whether you look at the 1991 Harshan Mehta crisis, people went mad after stocks, right? It was all about behavior. When you look at the 1997 crisis, when you look at the 2001 dot-com crisis, when you look at the 2008, which is fresh, I think, in most people's memories, it's entirely about behavior. The smartest guys in the room, the Wall Street bankers, investment bankers, those are the guys, they're all geniuses, right? They all had the informational edge. They all had the analytical edge. but it was the behavior that really did them in, and I think small investors bore the brunt of it. Before I move more into behavior, I think here is a question which I asked when I talk to college students. When I give lectures on personal finance investments or to college students. My question is, if I were to give you two choices, the first choice, if I were to give you 1 lakh per day for 30 days, and if I were to give you just 10 paisa, which doubles for 30 days, which one would you choose? Right? So I think people are smart here. But most students whom I encounter, they say the answer is obvious. I'll go with 1 lakh per day, which is certain. I know the answer, right? 1 lakh per day for 30 days. This is the answer. If you have 1 lakh per day for 30 days, the answer is 30 lakh, right? Easy. But when you have 10 paisa, which doubles every day for 30 days, you'll end up with 5.4 crore rupees at the end of 30 days. Of course, the money does not double, right, every day, like it doubles in this calculation. But it has a very important lesson for investors, and I'm going to talk about that. My second question, if I were to put 1 grain of rice on a block of the chessboard and double it for every block, how many grains of rice would I have on the 64th block? You cannot calculate, of course. But this is a situation where the king of China actually went into, and the inventor of chessboard came to him, and the king was very happy. He said, "You have invented a beautiful game. Ask whatever you want and I'll give it to you." So the guy said, "Sir, I just want 1 grain of rice, and you double it for every block of the chessboard. Whatever is there, I will take it." So the king started doubling. First block 1 grain, second block 2 grain, third block 4 grain, 10th block 512 grain. When he actually couldn't reach the 64th block. But if you were to calculate on the 64th block, the number of grains of rice will be this much, which is bigger than the total rice production in the world, which is bigger than which is a heap which is bigger than Mount Everest, right? Kind of rice that you can have. It can only be calculated, you cannot really have that in reality. Again, another lesson, that same lesson that I was talking about earlier, money does not double for every block, but there's a very important lesson here, which I'm going to talk about. My third question, how do you reach the moon for free? You cannot, of course, but mathematically you can. You just have to take a piece of paper which is 0.001 centimeter and just fold it 45 times. If you can fold a 0.001 centimeter paper 45 times, it will grow so big that it will reach from Earth to Moon. Of course, you cannot fold a piece of paper more than 7 or 8 times, but mathematically if you can do that, you can reach the Moon for by just folding it 45 times. Now my question is, what are rice grains, what is 10 paisa doubling, and what is reaching the moon have to do with money and investing? The answer is simple. I think small steps taken over a long period of time can lead to a huge amount of change in your lives. Just small steps. Just 1 grain of rice. Just 0.01 centimeter of paper. I'm not sure how many of you have seen this formula, but people who have done their MBA, like me unfortunately, they have known this formula, which is known as the formula for compound interest. This is the formula for compound interest. Compound interest means interest on your interest, right? If you like if you invest 100 rupees in a bank, if you save 100 rupees in a bank, very difficult these days. But if you save 100 rupees in a bank and which earns you 10%, in next year you will have 110 rupees. In the second year you will have 10% on 110 rupees, right? In the third year you will have 10% on 121 rupees. So your money is growing, your interest is you're earning interest on your interest. And this is the formula for that. F here means the future amount. P is the present value. 1 plus R is the rate of return, and T is time. This is the most important formula, or this formula can change your life if you can understand and appreciate and apply it in your investing life. How does it work? Present value is 5,000 rupees, 1 plus 20% rate of interest per year. If you can do it for 30 years, you'll end up with 12 lakh rupees. I'm sure being clients of Vinay, I think you guys all know about how compounding really works over a long period of time. But here's what Einstein said. He said compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. People who know it, earn it. People who don't know it, pay it. How do you pay compound interest? Which is negative compound interest. How do you do it? Earning compound interest, we all know. Keeping investing investing for long term, but how do you pay compound interest? How does it work in the negative? Inflation is not really the way. Of course, inflation is very important when it comes to investing. Whenever you lose money or whenever you trade a lot, how many of you trade in the stock markets? No one? Just 2 people, just 3 people trade in the stock market? How many of you trade in the stock market honestly? You have a nice audience, you have a nice crowd.
Inactive.
Yeah?
Inactive.
Inactive, I think, yeah. So you go by that fidelity thing, either you are inactive or you are dead if you want to do well in the stock markets. This is the guy who is the ninth wonder of the world. How many of you don't know him? Please raise your hand. Everyone knows the richest, almost the richest man on the planet, Warren Buffett. This guy has grown his money at 21% rate of interest for almost 60 years. Right? And if you see this chart, most of his wealth was created after he turned 50 years of age in 1980s. He was born in 1930s. 1984 is when this chart takes a inverse turn. Right? So nothing seems to be happening for the first 50 years, but this guy was doing huge amount of returns in the first 50 years. But the idea is that you see the change in the line and it happens after this guy turns 50 years of age. This simply means, or another example that I can give you is, if you want to grow your money at 100 times, if you want to grow your money 100 times over a 25-year period, which means 1 rupee becomes 100 rupees, the rate of return that you need per annum is just 20%. If you can earn 20%, right, for 25 years, you will end up with 1 rupee becoming 100 rupees. But out of that 100 rupee, the first 20 years will give you just 40 rupees. The last 60 of this 100 comes in the last 5 years. Which means compounding works over the long period of time. Compounding does not work in 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. It works in 15 years, 20 years. The most important number in this formula is time. The most important number that people think in this formula is rate of return. That's the reason most of us are all behind returns. ये stock कितना देता है, ये stock ने कितना दिया है, ये mutual fund का कितना return है. We all forget about the time that we have in hand. If you have 15 years, 20 years to invest, even if you have 10 years to invest, and if you do well in terms of selecting good fund or good stock, I think just let time take care of your wealth, not the rate of return. Of course, you need to earn a positive rate of return, but more important than rate of return is the time. And everyone knows this formula, right? Everyone knows, as I said, in MBA, in high school mathematics, you are taught this formula. And most of us have learned this formula. The question is, why are we all not rich, right? Why don't people get rich? I gave the answer initially, it's all about behavior. And here's the chart which really explains the behavior gap. So this was a study done in the US. The blue line is the rate of return that the investor has earned from equity funds in the US. And the red line is the rate of return of the US stock markets. If you see across 30 years, 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, 3 years, 1 year, this is ending December 2015. For all the time periods, the stock markets have done better than the investor. How can that be possible? The stock market is made up of investors, but the stock market across all time periods has done magnificently better than investors. This is the behavior gap. The entire gap that you can see between the red and the blue chart can be explained by behavior. Look at a fund called SDFC Prudence. I am not marketing it, but just one statistics I know because I have invested in this fund. Last 20 years, SDFC has grown money around 40 times, 45 times, something like that. But only 2% of people who started 20 years back with this fund are there with the fund now. So if you look at past fund performance and say, oh, this fund has multiplied money 20 times, which means investors have multiplied money 20 times. No, it's not always the same, because there's a gap between how investors behave and how the mutual fund or how the broader markets behave. It's a problem with the investor which is causing him to earn much lesser than the broader stock markets. You can as well invest in an index fund and earn better than, or earn in line with the stock markets. Why go with the active fund manager? Or why buy stocks on your own if you cannot mind your behavior? So that's a problem. I think before laying the blame on anyone else, I think for all our mistakes, and most of us make mistakes in the stock markets, especially when it comes to direct stock picking, the large part of behavior, large part of reason is behavior. Look at why the gap exists between the investor return and when the stock market returns. 25% of the gap is because of the investor had to withdraw money at a wrong time, and 25% of the gap was because investor did not have money to invest when the time was right. But 50% of the gap between the investor return and the stock market return is attributed to behavior, entirely behavior. The problem lies in the brain. It's a very powerful machine, but it has its weakness, huge amount of weakness. And what are those weaknesses called? These are called biases. Yes, biases. You got the word. I'm going to show you three triangles with something written in it. Right? You have to read what is written in it. Read it loudly as soon as I show it to you. Start. Did you notice the mistake? There are two the's, two us. Most people don't notice the mistake. Right? Why? Our brain is like that. We all know that brain is divided into two parts. I'm not going into scientific terms, I don't know much about that. But in terms of behavioral finance, it's called system 1 thinking and system 2 thinking. System 1 thinking is intuition. 2 into 2 is 4. We all know it. Effortless, like a deer or like a rabbit. System 2 thinking requires patience. 5,999 into 5,699. You need to do calculations, you have to think. System 1, system 2. You gave the answer using your system 1 brain. एकदम से बस देखा और आंसर कर दिया. सोचा नहीं कि क्या गलत हो सकता है, कुछ हो सकता है, नहीं हो सकता. And that's the way most of us make our stock market investments. That's the reason we make mistakes, because as soon as the stock price, we see the stock price, I think there's some psychological changes in our brain and we make mistakes. As soon as there's someone on CNBC or any television channel recommending a stock, and this guy looks like an authority, and we go and make a mistake because we think this is an authority, ये गलत हो ही नहीं सकता. Because we are using only the system 1 thinking, system 1 part of our brain, we are not using the system 2 part of our brain. System 1 was helpful when our ancestors were facing a lion. They did not have time to think, they had to run. And that's why we are here. And that's the reason our brain works that way. So it's a problem with the brain. So even if I talk about behavior, even if you read 100 books about behavior, how do you behave well in the stock markets, you cannot change your behavior because that's the way our brains are wired. But the point is that if you know about the problems or the holes in our brains, you can minimize the mistakes. That's the entire idea. The idea is to minimize mistakes, you cannot eliminate them. I'm going to talk about some mistakes, but before that, here Mr. Newton. In his response to 1720 collapse of the South Sea bubble, now this is one of the biggest bubbles that really happened, he said, I can calculate the motion of stars or heavenly bodies, but I cannot calculate the madness of people. This is what Newton said in 1700s. It's easy to calculate the motion of stars, not the madness of men. Warren Buffett says, investing is not a game where the guy with a 160 IQ beats the guy with 130 IQ. So you don't need to have a high IQ for sure. Once you have ordinary intelligence, what you need is a temperament to control the urges that get other people into trouble. Once you have ordinary intelligence, we all have ordinary intelligence, and most of us, I'm sure some of you have above average intelligence as well. All we need to succeed in investing is the temperament, is the right behavior. That's all. And this is coming from the world's best investor. Why are human beings so hard to teach but so easy to deceive? I have always fought this question. It's very hard to teach people, it's very easy to deceive people. If I go and conduct a workshop trying to teach people how to make sensible investments, you'll have 40, 50 people in the room. But if you have a broker or a television channel, right, setting up a program where they give stock tips, right, where they are deceiving people, you'll have 500 people in the room. So this is a very given thing. It's very easy to deceive people, and that's the reason we all get fooled. It's very easy to fool ourselves. The answer is biases. Biases is the word which I said. Biases are like holes in a brain. Like before you go into a boat, you check for holes, right? If there's a hole, you either fill it up or you will go to a separate boat. In the same way, in investing, before you start to make investments, right, it's very important to understand what are the biases, what are those holes in the brain, so that you can either fill them up or you try to minimize the mistakes of those things. It's very important. One of the most dangerous biases is overconfidence. I think most of us fall for it in most areas of our life. 80% of people will think they are better than above average drivers, or better than above average spouses, or better than above average tennis players, or investors. Only 50% people can be above average, right? Not 80%. But that's overconfidence. Why do you think people trade in the stock markets? Ye stock nahi to kuch aur sahi. Even if the stock has given me loss, let me try my hand somewhere else. I'm sure I'm going to make money. Why do you think people trade in derivatives? Why do you think people borrow to invest money? It's all overconfidence. There's a guy called Bruce Greenwald. There was a guy called Bruce Greenwald. This is not related to investing. He was called the next Albert Einstein, a Swiss mathematician. He was called the next Albert Einstein. He died bungee jumping. Now, how do you die bungee jumping? It's a safe sport because they tie a rope to your leg and you just have to jump. But he died bungee jumping high. He was overconfident. He was a super genius guy. He fell to a depth of 200 feet using a 300 feet rope. Got the point? Falling to 200 feet using a 300 feet rope, you fall to ground. And there's a story about his death, among the most comic tragedies. When people are overconfident, when people are geniuses, they make mistakes. And that's the reason you don't need to be a genius to become a successful investor, for sure. Because genius equals overconfidence. The second important bias, and one of the most dangerous biases, is herding. If you can see in this thing, I'm sure most of you cannot see. The first guy is on phone. He says, I have got a stock idea that could really excel. The second guy hears, really excel? Excel, then it becomes sell. People are all shouting sell. So suddenly someone says, I cannot take it anymore. I'm going, goodbye. Then that goodbye becomes bye. So hearing from like Chinese game, right? We all used to play. You hear something else, but you speak something else at the end. This is all herding. This is all social proof. We all want to do what everyone else is doing. This happens so much in stock markets. Why do you think we have bull markets and bear markets? Why do you think we have Sensex at 30,000 and Sensex at 8,000 within 6 months? It's all because everyone wants to do what everyone else is doing. Whether it's stock market, whether it's with online e-commerce companies making sales, people want to do it because people want to do, as I mentioned, people want to do what everyone else is doing. They find safety in numbers. And that's so evident in stock market and investing. That's the reason we make mistakes. Everyone wanted to. How many of you applied to Reliance Power by IPO? No one? That was a bull market for sure. But why do people, when they know that they are getting into badness, why do people make mistakes? Because they see everyone making mistakes. It's like a Cinderella dance at the ball. The only problem is that the clock has no arms. So you don't know when there is 12 o'clock. You don't know when you have to move out of the party. So everyone is busy dancing. And suddenly there's 12 o'clock. And everything turns. So herding, be very careful when you are trying to invest the way everyone else is investing. When you're finding as a thumb rule, when you see a lot of IPOs coming in the market, that's a time to be very patient and very quiet. IPOs come at the peak of the stock markets because companies don't raise money when they need it. Companies raise money when the money is available. And when is the money available? When everyone wants to invest. So be very careful of applying to IPOs. Don't apply to IPOs only for listing gains. This is not a casino. This is a way to create long-term wealth. A lot of people get into stock market thinking it's a casino. There's a big difference between a casino and the stock market. In casino, the longer you play, the more you are going to lose. In the stock market, the longer you play, the more you are going to win. That's a big difference. Authority bias. People who are dressed like authority, we think they are authorities. People who talk serious stuff on business channels, we think they are authorities in stock markets. And we go by what they say. right? So they appear in front of us everywhere, whether it's a toothpaste advertisement or whether it's a stock market channel. It's very important to differentiate between people who are real authorities in their field and people who are dressed as authorities. Be very careful about that. Why do you think most investment bankers are always suited and booted? Because if they were not doing so, nobody would listen to them. They have to dress like authority. So authority bias is very easy. I'm talking about these holes where we easily fall into. This is the third hole. Authority. Very important for you to differentiate between who is giving credible advice and who is just talking rubbish. Just because he's dressed like an authority, we give into this advice. Very important to differentiate. Loss aversion, Lance Armstrong, people who are into cycling know this guy, American superstar, who actually won a lot of races, but at the end was found taking drugs. And in his documentary, The Armstrong Lie, the first sentence he says, I like to win, but more than anything, I can't stand this idea of losing, because to me, losing means death. Loss aversion. The pain from a loss is much bigger than pleasure from a gain. A 10% loss will cause you a bigger pain than a 10% gain. Right? And that's the reason people hold on to their losing stocks, thinking, यार अभी बेच के क्या होगा? अभी जब profit कमाऊंगा तब बेचूंगा. Or when I get my cost back, I'll sell it then. Or on the other hand, people will sell their winning stocks as soon as possible. Why? Because they want to save their losses, save their gains before the stock falls. जितना जल्दी जितना फायदा हो उतना निकाल लो. And the stock is 60, 70, 80% down. We don't want to sell, thinking कि अभी जब ये वापस मेरे price पे आएगा, then I'm going to sell it. Because we hate losses. We hate admitting that we made a mistake. Loss aversion is all about that. Making mistakes is like killing yourself. How can I be so stupid? It's like saying, how can I be so stupid? How can I make a mistake? And that's the reason you don't accept your mistake, and that's the reason you don't sell your bad stocks. Can anyone tell me the weight of this mobile phone?
160 grams.
Any guesses? All are guesses anyways.
160 grams.
It all depends on how long I am going to hold it. This way. For the next 1 minute, it will be 160. Gradually, if I hold it for 5 minutes, it will feel like 1 kg. Bad stocks or bad investments in your portfolio are like this mobile phone or anything that you hold like this. The longer you hold them, the heavier they are going to feel on your portfolio. Investing is all about, or sensible investing is all about having peaceful night's sleep. It's not about anything complex. It's not about beating the next investor or beating the stock market. It's always investing. Always look at investing is whether you're able to sleep peacefully at night or not. If something is disturbing you among your investments, please get off that investment. Right? Even if you are earning a loss. The fourth bias from consistency tendency, or it's also called commitment bias. This is what Salman Khan said. Right? एक बार जब मैंने commitment कर दिया, फिर मैं अपने आप की भी नहीं सुनता. So we all commit to some things, and we are not willing to listen to anything that goes against that commitment. If you bought a bad stock or a bad investment, thinking it was a good stock or a good investment, and then we realize that we made a mistake, we are not going to listen to that mistake, or that person who's telling that you made a mistake. We are always going to first come to a conclusion. It works in the reverse, right? It works in the reverse. We have made a conclusion, now we try to justify that conclusion. That's consistency. Everyone's saying no, but I can see only yes. And you will ignore everyone who is going against you, because you want to be consistent to yourself. Very easy bias to fall into. Whether it's mutual funds, whether it's stocks, any investment. If you bought a bad insurance and someone then tells you, sir, आपने insurance खरीदा है, this is bad, please surrender the policy. You cannot. It's very difficult for you to do that, because you want to remain consistent to what you originally did. Consistency is good in life, but not in investing. Not always in investing. Bias from envy and jealousy. So there are various cardinal sins, right? But this is a sin which has no upside. In every other sin, you can be happy while you are committing the sin, but not in envy. And most of the investment mistakes that we make are because of envy. उसका स्टॉक मेरे स्टॉक से तेज कैसे? Right, so I'm going to show a video of two monkeys. Now, humans are not only involved in NVHLC, even monkeys are there. So there are two monkeys. Both are given a same task. The first monkey is given a grape, and the second monkey is given a piece of cucumber. Let's see how they react. This guy gets a cucumber and that guy gets a grape. And grape is something that monkeys like. Cucumber. Doesn't need it. What is the problem here? The problem is not that he's getting a cucumber. The problem is that the other guy is getting a grape. So if you're working on a job, and this is what I actually faced. If I got a salary hike of 10,000 rupees, I was happy. But if the other guy got a salary hike of 12,000 rupees, I was the most depressed person in the room. If I'm making a 20% return from the stock market, I'm terribly happy. But if the other guy is making 25% return, how could it be so? I'll try to do everything in the world so that I can also earn 25% rate of return. We are behaving like monkeys. Envy is the only thing when you don't have any upside. And please remember that there are people who will be getting richer faster than you. But if you try to emulate them, if you try to copy them, if you try to do anything to be like them, I think you are digging a grave for yourself. Why do you think people invested in real estate stocks or they speculated in real estate in 2007-8? Because everyone else was making a lot of money in those stocks. And we all felt envious of them. Look at, Newton again, smartest guy in the room even now. 1720, South Sea bubble, I talked about that. So this is a stock price chart of South Sea company. It was a huge company in United Kingdom, and Newton, being a rich guy, a famous guy, had a lot of information on this company. So he bought the stock when it was around 250 pounds a share, and this is a chart of just 9 months in a year. So 250 pounds a share, Newton buys the stock, the stock rises, it rises 3 times in 3 months. Newton becomes 3 times richer. He sells the stock. He says, I can calculate the motion of stars but not the madness of man. This is where he says these words. He sells everything, he becomes 3 times richer. He's happy. But the stock does not know that Newton has sold it. The stocks keep rising and it rises here, and this is where Newton buys again. Why does he buy again? He says everyone else is getting richer. How can I miss out? He buys at the top and the stock starts falling because the bubble has burst. And Newton has to sell at the bottom again. Gone. Everything that he earned was gone, including his reputation. So the guy whom gravity accidentally found could not find gravity in the financial markets, and this is how stock markets or financial markets behave. Right? This is the smartest guy in the room. Prediction. We all want to predict. Crickets का score क्या होगा, कि कल का weather क्या होगा, कि election का result क्या होगा, कि stock market कहाँ जाएगा. Right, so I am going to play a game. I need one volunteer who is not very smart. Please raise your hand. Anyone who wants to play this game with me? No, everyone is very smart here. You want to play? I hope.
Not very smart.
You are not very smart? Good. I hope you don't know about this game. So you will see 2 shapes, same kind of shapes, one in green and one in red. 70% of shapes are green and 30% are red. Right? You have to predict the next color, and let's see how many times you get it right. Next. Green or red?
Red.
Red. Next.
Green.
Next.
Red.
Next.
Green.
Next.
Red.
Green.
Next. Red.
Green. No, one volunteer. Yeah.
Red.
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 Green.
Red.
There are 20, so 9 more to go. So again green.
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 Red.
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 Green.
Red.
Green.
Green.
Red.
Red.
Green.
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 Finish. Green, you're right. I said 70% of shapes are green and 30% are red. You could have scored the maximum 70% marks by saying everything is green.
I think I ended up saying the same.
No, you said red a lot of times. But you could have earned 70% marks. Of course, if you had earned 100% marks, then this was rigged. But you could have earned 70% marks by saying everything is green. But we all want to predict. Right? Because we are asked to predict. And why? Because we think the world is very controllable. And prediction gives a sense of comfort. And that's the reason we find it very comfortable watching television and seeing people who predict the future. Buffett, we have long felt that the only value of stock forecasters is to make fortune tellers look good. Short-term market forecasts are poison and should be kept locked up in a safe place away from children and also from grown-ups who behave in the market like children. All forecasts are like poison, please avoid them. These guys didn't. They are one of the smartest guys, I think. Ambit Capital. Right? See the Sensex forecast. March 2016 Sensex forecast in January 2015 it was 36,000. They dropped it to 34,000, then 28,000, then 22,000. Now they are back to 29,500. And they have got it all wrong. But you see people like them every day in newspapers or television channels. They are all getting it wrong. How many times have you heard someone coming on television and say, I made a mistake during my last prediction? Nobody claims a mistake. Everyone talks about future predictions. Nobody claims a mistake of the past. How much time do I have? 15 minutes actually. It's very easy to create a stock market scam. A lot of people do it. And you can do it too. All you have to do is take the email IDs of 1 lakh people or say 50,000 people. Take 1 lakh people email IDs. To 50,000 people send an email, buy Reliance or any stock. To another 50,000 send an email, sell Reliance. In the next 1 week, one of the group will be right? They'll make a profit. Buy Reliance or sell Reliance, they'll avoid a loss. People who made a profit are fine. People who actually got a wrong prediction, remove them from the list. Now you have 50,000 people, again divide them into half. Buy Reliance 50%, buy Reliance 50%. One of them will get it right. Remove the people who got it wrong. 25,000, divide that into half. Do it for 5 or 6 times. At the end of 5 or 6 times, you will have maybe 1,000 people who got it right 6 times in a row. But they don't know the other guys, other thousands of guys who got it wrong because they are removed from the list. Now to these 1,000 people who got it right 6 times in a row, you sell a prediction tip service, a stock tip service worth 50,000 rupees. And they'll say, wow, this guy has got it right 6 times in a row, I am going to buy his stock tipping service. I am going to make a huge amount of money. And then you run away with the money. Easy. And this is how stock market scams are created. When you read Morgan Stanley has recommended a buy of this company on CNBC, the ticker, and you go and buy, you are actually the greater fool. People who are supposed to make profit and who had bought have already made the money. You are now a bigger fool. That guy has to sell it to you. I know a broker, a reputed broker, and most brokers are reputed until you know about them. So this guy came out with a, most brokers have 2 arms, retail arm and an institutional arm. Please don't share this in public. So retail arm is where a broker will recommend stocks to retail investors like you and me, and institutional arms is where he is going to recommend stocks to big institutions. So this reputed guy came out with a buy report on Crompton Greaves stock, actual report in 2007, and sent it to retail guys, buy Crompton Greaves. On the same day, his institutional clients got a sell recommendation on the same stock, Crompton Greaves. How can one company have 2 different views of the same stock? This is a scam. And this happens every day in front of us. I've met a lot of people who buy the tipping services, all the technical charters to come on television. And when you try to get two of them together from 2 different cities, and one will claim that he got a buy on some stock and the other guy will say, on the same day I got a sell on this stock. One of them is going to be right. That is a scam, huge fraud. So be very careful of when you are buying recommendation service, stock tipping service, or people claiming to make you richer in the next 10 days. I'm sure most of you or people who are there in the stock market will be getting a lot of calls from Indore and Rajkot these days. I'm getting a lot of calls. Be very careful of stock tips, please. They are poison. And be very careful of predictions. Please don't buy predictions. Please don't make predictions. Horrible. So I talked about a few biases, and there are a lot more biases, but these are the most important things. The question is, if I know about these biases, how do I eliminate them? There's no way to eliminate biases. But there are 5 things or a few things that you can do, each one of us can do to minimize the mistakes of these biases. In investing, it is said that you are good or you can create a lot of wealth in stock markets if you are right 6 out of 10 times. You don't need a 100% track record. But if you are right 6 out of 10 times, you're fine. Only ensure that the remaining 4 times you're wrong, you're not horribly wrong. Right? So it's very important to understand that you cannot have a perfect score. Same with behavior. You cannot really behave well. Our brains are not wired like that. From prehistoric times, we have not changed the way we think. But doing certain things can minimize the mistakes of the behavior. The first is being humble. I think, how do you be humble in investing? Avoid borrowing to invest. Please don't borrow money to invest. Whatever the bull market is, wherever the stocks are going, please don't borrow money to invest. A lot of people do that in bull markets. Please don't do that. Diversify. Diversify does not mean buying 10 mutual funds or 20 mutual funds and 50 stocks. That's not diversification. That's diversification. W-O-R-S-E. Right? It's very important to diversify adequately. So having 5 or 6 mutual funds in your portfolio or having 15 maximum stocks in your portfolio is good enough. As I mentioned, investing should let you sleep peacefully at night. Right? So having lesser amount of stuff is good. And avoid minimized trading. Very important to avoid trading in stocks. We all focused on returns, right? But there's something called as return per unit of stress. What is the amount of stress that you are taking to earn that return? We forget to take that into account. Very important to understand the stress part. People can earn 20, 30, 40% return in bull markets. People can trade derivatives and trade stocks and does that kind of money. Please don't get envious, because the kind of stress that those guys are taking are huge. And it's going to take a huge toll on their lives. You have to be sane. Right? You have to take less stress. And doing sensible stuff, not borrowing, not trading will keep you low stress, at low stress levels. Being patient, very important. Don't try to make money quick, tune out the noise and make sure time is on your side. Compounding, as I mentioned, does not work for 5 years, 3 years, 2 years, or 1 quarter or 6 months. It works in a 10-year, 15-year horizon, or more than that, better it is. But you have to be patient. Very important. There were tests on patience. Now, another video, I'm going to show you a short video. This was called the Marshmallow Experiment. Small kids, age around 5 to 8 years, were asked to sit in a room with a piece of marshmallow, and kids love marshmallows. And they were told that you have to be in this room with this marshmallow for the next 5 minutes or till I come. If I come back and if you have not consumed the marshmallow, I'll give you the second one. Then you can eat both of them. Right? So asking a kid to wait for 5 minutes for a marshmallow is like asking an adult to wait for 5 minutes for a coffee. Right? It's very difficult for people who like coffee. So just look at this video and see the reaction of kids.
Alright, here's the deal. Marshmallow, 3. You can either wait, and I'll give you another one if you wait, or you can count. When I count back, I'll give you another one. Stay in here, stay in the chair, we'll come back, okay? Alright. wait. Okay? I'll be back. Stay in the chair, okay? Okay. Alright, so I'm going to leave and then I'll come back, okay? So you can either eat it right now or you can wait. Either way, okay? Okay. How'd you do? You do good? You did? You wanted to eat it, didn't you? Yeah. So the lady's giving you a name on both.
So what's the lesson from this video? What's a term? Biggest lesson that people can learn from this video. These kids were actually tracked as they grew older. And the scientists actually realized that guys who did not eat the marshmallows turned out to be hugely successful in their lives. And guys who actually ate the marshmallow in those 5 minutes of waiting, or who cannot resist the marshmallow, did not do well in their lives. The lesson that comes out from this video is that of delayed gratification. Investing is all about that. You are deferring gratification for the future. Of course, you cannot or you should not sacrifice your present in time for your future. But the idea is to delay gratification as much as possible. That's all investing, that's sensible investing all about. If you ask people, why do you invest in stock markets? People will say, to make money. Make money for what? A lot of people get excited by the idea of making money. But that's not why you come to the stock markets or invest your money. You invest your money to earn good returns or create wealth to meet your financial goals. As simple as that. That's delayed gratification all about. Paul Samuelson, one of the leading economists in the world, Nobel Prize winner, said investing should be dull, it should be exciting. It should be like watching grass grow. If you want to gamble, take money and go to Las Vegas or go to casino. Why come to the stock market? So being patient, this whole idea about delaying gratification, being patient, I think if you are patient, you will not fall into the biases, you will not fall into the behavioral issues, you will not trade, you will not get overconfident. You will not do what the crowd does because you are patient. Third, have a plan. Very important to have a plan, because if you have a written plan, it will help you not deviate from what you want to achieve in life. It's very important, because if you don't have a plan, if you don't know what you want to do with your finances, with your money investments, and you are not really, and you just take your day or investments as they come, then you're going to make a lot of mistakes, a lot of big mistakes. But if you have a plan, I need to prepare for these kind of goals, right? As far as goals are concerned, one thing I must tell you. Yeah. As far as goals are concerned, a lot of people have goals like children's education and foreign holiday, right? Buying a luxury car. At the end, sometimes they'll have something called as retirement, right? And people rarely focus, especially people when they're young, like me. People rarely focus on retirement, but it's very important to have retirement as your topmost priority, not your child's education or marriage, because your child can get an education loan. Nobody will give you a retirement loan. So if there's first thing in the priority list of why I need to save and invest, it has to be your retirement. It's very, very important. That's a part of your plan. Fourth is avoid financial news. I think any kind of news. Don't read newspapers. I've not had a new newspaper in my house for the last 10 years almost, and I don't feel any difference. If you want to read newspapers, go back 5 years and read those newspapers, and you realize that whatever they have written 5 years back does not make sense now. So why spend that 1 hour of your day precious 1 hour or 30 minutes reading newspapers which doesn't make sense. It's poison. Or watching business TV. This is a guy who runs one of the leading magazines in the world called Forbes. And this is what he says. You make more money selling advice than following it. It's one of the things we count on in the magazine business, along with the short memory of our readers. People have short memories, they ignore the mistakes that these guys make. But that's the way magazines and newspapers sell. Right? But if you understand that this is all utter piece of nonsense that you need to ignore in your daily life. Now people ask me, how will I get information? Right? How do I get information on news? The question is, if you want information about relevant stuff, you can use something called as Google Alerts, which are free. You can set alerts on your investments, on your companies that you are tracking, all important things, rather than reading newspapers. Fifth important way you can minimize the mistakes or biases is to read sensible stuff and a lot of good books. How many of you read books? Only 1, 2, 3 people. Oh, very important. Very nice. I see a kid raising his hand. It's very important to be a lifelong learner. I think if you talk to the best investors in the world, if you get a chance to talk to Warren Buffett, for example, or any successful investor you know who's done well in the stock market or any investment in the last 30, 40 years, or any successful person you know, that guy reads or learns a lot, keeps learning. The day we stop learning, I think that's the way we stop moving forward. It's very important to keep learning. And learning compounds, like everything compounds in life. Reading 1 page a day or 2 pages or half an hour a day compounds over a long period of time. It's a habit that you build. And the earlier you build it, the better it is. Benjamin Graham, who's said the father of sensible investing, he said long time back that the investor's chief problem and even his worst enemy is likely to be himself. We are our own worst enemy, and the reason is behavior I talked about. Warren Buffett says the stock market has a very efficient way of transferring capital from impatient to patient. People who are patient make money, people who are impatient don't make money in the long run. I think the last slide, do's and don'ts, very important when it comes to behavior. What you should be focusing on? You should be focusing on good behavior. You should be focusing on planning. You should be focusing on diversification and long-term perspective. You cannot really aim to build wealth for yourself or meet your financial goals if you don't have a long-term perspective. And things that you should not focus on is short-term performance, noise and predictions. Please avoid all these things. Please avoid short-term performance of stocks and mutual funds. Please don't worry where the markets are going next day or next week. Right? It doesn't matter in your long scheme of things. That's all noise. And please avoid predictions. People who are making predictions are all trying to fool you. And please don't make predictions yourself. So that's all from my side. If you have any questions, except stock tips, I'm going to take it. Yeah. So, any questions on behavior, on stock markets, on all those kind of things? Yeah.
Thanks, Vishal, for your beautiful insight. And I hopefully, like everyone has sometime had never invested. I know many in this crowd, they never have ever invested into any type of equity mutual funds or equity also. But this session is like one thing I really like about Vishal is very good learner. I mean, he also written 2-3 books about investment, and because we have to leave early, and there's one session called Success Story of Small Entrepreneurs. I mean, chota hai but bada hai. So I request Vishal, I mean, definitely if anyone have questions, definitely one can ask questions. Anyone have questions? ज़्यादा भारी हो गया?
You mentioned these are all smart guys, so they anyway understand what I said. I think so. That's one reason I think people don't have questions. So any questions? You have one question. I cannot sing, so anything else?
I wanted to ask.
I wanted to ask that what made you want to blog about your investment advices? Like, why blogging? How did you think that would be a good medium to approach and gain networking and?
I won't call myself a blogger actually. So you can see a blog, safalniveshak.com, but I like to call myself more of a teacher. And as I mentioned, when I was working in the stock market for 8 years, that was the place I hated going every day, right? Because I saw the financial services industry taking investors for a ride. And one thought that I had then was to actually get on ground and really help people become their own investors, own advisors, rather than seeking advisors from all the corrupt guys out in the market. So that was the reason I actually started into teaching about investing. What I do on Safal Niveshak mostly revolves not around what you should do to become a successful investor, but it's more about what you should avoid doing to make mistakes in your financial life. So most of my teaching happens that way. So my passion for teaching and my love for writing and the pain of seeing people making mistakes and losing their hard-earned money, which I saw in my own extended family as well. So all these three things combined actually to lead me to quit my job. And of course, the long travels in Bombay. So I was traveling every day from Belapur to Nariman Point, which is almost 3 hours to and fro. Just hated it. So one fine day, nothing doing. So that was the start of the journey. I think 2011 when I started, and so Vinay was very kind enough to call it a session on success stories. So I don't think I am successful as of now. You cannot be successful till you are dead, because the future can be anything, right? So, but what I'm trying to do is to help people learn the sensible way of making money in the stock markets, investing, the ways of not losing money, and doing it across throughout India. So I have workshops across the country. Last year I also went to smaller towns and cities, and my workshops, which I mostly do, are not priced. So I don't say that you pay me this and I'm going to teach you something. What I say is that you come and you learn. If you think you learned something, you pay me something. That is a model which I followed, and that has really worked successfully. Again, works on trust. I trust the other guy and he trusts me, and that's the reason the model works. So it has been a nice journey so far, and lucky to be doing all this. I think it's more of luck than my skill. Things have fallen in place, and just yesterday Safal Niveshak touched the 25,000 subscriber readership mark, and that was a good feeling. It's all in 5 years, but it looks like a long journey which I have traveled. So.
Vishal, if you remember, we met 2011 at NIXM.
That's right. That was the first workshop which I gave.
So we met in a group of fraternity people. Tejinder was there, Sadik was there.
That's true.
So I've seen, and he's our neighbor only. I stay in Seawood and he's in CUT Belapur. Vishal, you have seen a lot of young crowds out there, teenagers there. What is your message to them? They also want to become a journey, they don't want to be corporate slaves. Or what is your, maybe some tips or something you want to share with them?
See, I wrote an article, I think 2012, why I quit my job and how I found myself. In 2014, I wrote an article, why you should not quit your job. Right? So, I would not say someone working for someone else as a corporate slave. It's not really the right word, because what I have realized is that what you love doing either can be found inside your job or outside your job. Right? You don't always need to quit your job, but very important to do things that you love, and very important to work for people you respect. Right? So again, a lot of things which I have learned comes from guys like Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. Buffett says when he hires people, he looks for 3 things. The first is energy, the second is intelligence, and the third is integrity. And if you don't have the third thing, the first 2 is going to destroy you. If you don't have integrity, energy and intelligence is going to destroy you. So most important for, I think, young people out there is to choose to do what you love doing, and choose to work for or with people you respect a lot, right? Not for the salary. So salary, as I said, when I quit in 2011, stock market, when you're working in a stock market, you get paid a lot of money for doing nothing, right? So I was also paid a lot of money when I was quitting my job, and against all the wishes of my well-wishers, I quit, right? And in the first 3 months, the salary was 0, because there was no salary, no income. And there was a feeling, oh, what I have done. right? I have a family of four people. So have I compromised the future? But then the idea from the very start was to be persistent, right? Keep doing what you're doing, and I think things will happen. So there's a very important concept, and this applies especially to people who are young, who have many years in front of them, or people who are running their own businesses when they are young. There's a concept called the J curve. A J curve. How does the J look like? It looks like this, right? Right. So if you have a lot of success stories, right? Initial 10-year period, initial 5-year period, you will see nothing happening, and then it moves like a hockey stick. So you have to have that belief in the J curve. It's very important to have that belief in the J curve. And if you think that if you're doing work in the right direction, right? If you're trying to solve the problem of someone, then it's not difficult to make money, because all of us here are educated, right? All of us here are educated. All of us have some skills which are sellable, which people can buy into. So I'm not asking you to quit your job, but what I'm saying is that if that's an option that you think that you can take it, then don't fear. That's the most important lesson. Don't fear, I think. The first step that we stop, or the reason we don't take the next step, is because we fear. Right? So not having that fear is very important, and giving a lot of credit to luck. Right? Luck, like love, is a verb. What is a verb? English? Action. So when you act, when you do the things, only then luck will come to you. This is what I've realized. And so this 25,000 readership base has happened because I have tried to do patiently what I have done in the last 5 years. I have never advertised any medium except writing articles on my website. Nothing. It's entirely word of mouth. And the reason I chosen internet or blog as a medium is because it's hugely scalable. I don't need to travel worldwide or through different parts of India to teach people. Right? You can write one stuff and it is going to be read in 190 countries. So that's the power of internet. I think if you can use that power both as a user of information or as a supplier or as a teacher, I think it's going to work wonders for you. So that's the idea.
Thanks, Vishal, for inviting us. So one thing is very clear: you should live a mission-oriented life. Mission-oriented life. So now I call Shweta to.
Very warm welcome to each and everyone sitting over here. I really appreciate you have taken out your time and just be with the right value wealth advisory service family. So we owe to you. A big thank you to Mr. Vishal Khandelwal ji. So it's pleasure to have you here and listen to all the whatever you had insight us for the important points. Now I request one person. That is, we really respect him a lot. Mr. K.C. Mittal ji, to facilitate him.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please.
Yeah. 1 second.